So, hopefully, by now you learn a little bit about who this guy Mark Twain was. As I said, he's a pretty important figure in American literature. He's been very influential. If you had never heard of Mark Twain, I'm sure this won't be the first or the last time you will in your lifetime. So, just basic things that you might have known or learned about in that video. He grew up in Hannibal, Missouri, which is, I'll show you on the map in just a second. He was from a sort of wealthy family, but was sent to work at age 12 after his father died. So definitely encountered some tragedy in his lifetime. And you might have seen also he worked on a steamship and traveled up and down the Mississippi River during his lifetime, as well as a number of other jobs that he had that really gave him, I think, a lot of his character. Mark Twain wasn't his real name. As you heard, his name was Samuel Langhorne Clemens, and this was his one of his pen names, Mark Twain, the one that he really became known for. He got this from working on a steamship, and he is he got this from having a measure of steamboat navigation. Sorry, 2 fathoms or 12 feet deep, deep enough for a steamboat to pass safely. Back then, the Mississippi River was a much wilder river than it is today, and you'd want to know how deep the water was so that you didn't encounter anything that would stop you or crash your boat or anything like that. So when you marked Twain, that was a good depth, and that's where he picked up this name that he became known as. Here's that map again. Hannibal is just north of St. Louis a little bit. You can see the Iowa border up on the north there, and then of course we're a little further north than that. It's pretty much a day's drive down to Hannibal. If you've ever been there or want to go there, you'll see a lot of Mark Twain stuff. A lot of stuff has been preserved and recreated to make it feel like it might have felt a little bit when Mark Twain was living there. His fictional town in this book that we're about to read is called St. Petersburg, and he based this town on his own hometown of Hannibal. And the novel is set there and also set in the time period of the 1840s. So you might want to think back to what you've learned in social studies this year about what was going on in the 1840s in the United States. One of the things that is definitely going on in their country during that time is it's before the Civil War. Which means there's still slavery. Even as far north as Missouri, they saw a lot of slavery. You saw this quote in the novel. In my boyhood days, I was not aware that there was anything wrong about it, slavery. The local paper said nothing against it. The local pulpit taught us God approved it. Still, Sam sensed that slavery was a woeful thing. Once he witnessed a dozen chained slaves waiting to be shipped down the river. Those were the saddest faces I have ever seen, he said. And so it's important to recognize that this is when this novel is taking place, and also that, like it says here, Mark Twain was sometimes an inconsistent man. He claimed to believe in God, but not in religion. He fought for the Confederacy, but he did not support slavery. In fact, he paid all expenses at one point in his life for a black student to attend Yale University. He made the gesture because he believed reparation or repayment was due from every white man to every black man. The incident that I just went through there illustrates an important point about Twain's character. Some people mistakenly believe that he was prejudiced simply because he used language in his novels that would have been offensive. We'll see some of those words throughout this book, just so you know. But Twain is using words like that as he does because he wants them to reflect the people that he's trying to create in his novels. He wants these people to talk like people actually talked, and you'll see a lot of that slang and a lot of that kind of realistic talking throughout this book. Words such as ain't and things like that. This language reflects the attitudes and people from his Missouri boyhood. So it's trying to be as realistic as he can. Such terms do not necessarily reflect that Twain was himself racist or that he was going for that as the aim of any of his writing here. You'll see terms that refer to black people. You'll see terms that refer to Native American people that are offensive terms today, especially in 2019. And just be aware of that. We can talk about that and get into the intricacies of that as we get through this novel. But that's just something to be aware of. Like I said, St. Petersburg in the 1840s, it was a small Missouri town on the Mississippi, and modeled after the town of Hannibal. He also modeled a lot of characters in this novel after people that he knew in real life. So the main character of our book, Tom Sawyer, is a good-hearted but troublesome kid, and he kind of combined three different people that he knew in real life into this fictional character. Huck Finn was Tom's best friend. He was despised by parents but admired by children. And he does have his own book, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which is probably one of Twain's most well regarded novels. But he plays a major part in The Adventures of Tom Sawyer as well. And he based this character on his childhood friend, Tom Blankenship. I think as you were writing some of your sci-fi stories, you might have put elements of people that you actually knew in real life into some of your characters. And he's the same kind of way. He likes to include things he knows about people and into those fictional characters. Aunt Polly is a character we'll meet on page 1 of the novel. Tom's aunt and guardian. She's kind-hearted, and she was based on Twain's mother. Mary is his cousin in the book, and she was based on his sister Pamela. Sid is a half brother of Tom, and he is a goody-goody, but he is also very mean-hearted. So he was based, of course, on his younger brother Henry. And the last character, Injun Joe, is what he's known as, is a violent town villain. This term Injun is one of those pretty offensive terms. We don't want to go around saying it, but it's referring to this character who is a Native American. That word Injun means Indian, or we might say Native American or indigenous person. So just be aware of that. We'll meet that character and talk more about that character as we go on. He based that character on a harmless town drunk. As we read this book, just like we did for Treasure Island, you're going to want to be able to show that you've interacted with the text in some sort of way. So you can take notes in whatever way that you think works best for you, but please, for this novel especially, try to be brief. Back in Treasure Island, I saw a lot of people doing lots and lots and lots of notes. That's not what I'm really concerned about, is like the quantity of notes that you have. Your notes should be brief. They should not take up most of your time. Your options are very similar. If you want to do some sort of Cornell notes, if that's a familiar style to you, you could certainly try to use that for taking notes for this book. Maybe you have your own style of taking notes. Think about how you might want to do that. You could use Post-it notes if that's something that works for you. You could even use graphic organizers or do some sort of visual interpretation of what you've read to show that you're interacting with the text. We'll have plenty of activities that we'll be doing with this book, but think about how you want to do this on your own as you're reading. Chapter summaries might be a good way to do that. You might even start interacting with those essential questions to try to connect what you're reading to what those questions are. And then you could even write your own quiz. Just another idea I thought might be appealing to some of us. So think about how you want to do that as you get into the book today, which we will do in just a couple minutes. Our assignment, while I'm on this slide, is to read through chapter 8 for next time. That would be on pace. That would be like where we'd like you to be for next time. And we can talk plenty more about what you've read and make sense of things, and then move right along as we get into the next class. But see if you can get through chapter 8, and again, take notes however you think you need to. All right, I'm sure I'll be back in just a second with some more, but that's pretty much what I want you to know before you start cracking these books open.